Good morning, you're now live.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first Police Services Board meeting of 2021. As Executive Director of the Board, I will be facilitating the first agenda item of today's meeting, which is the election of a Board Chair for calendar year 2021. Once a chair is elected, I will turn the meeting over to the chair to facilitate the election of a vice chair and to chair the remainder of the meeting. And as we continue to hold virtual board meetings, the chair will also have some housekeeping comments upon taking over the meeting. We'll begin with a roll call, and all board members are present, including Councillor Martin Medeiros, who joins the board for 2 years and is the Brampton representative. Welcome, Martin. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? None declared. Before we move on to the first agenda item, I will turn the floor over to Vice Chair Ahmed Attia, who would like to make some comments on a somber anniversary of a tragic event that took place 4 years ago today. I'll turn it over to Mr. Attia now. Ahmed?
Thank you, Rob. 4 years ago, on January 29th, 2017, an act of terror took place in Quebec City at the Grand Mosque, where 6 lives were taken and 19 other individuals were injured. In memory of those people, I'd like to mention their names: Ibrahima Bari, Mahmouda Tanu Berry, Khalid Balkamisi, Balkasimi, Abdul Karim Hassan, Azzuddin Sufyan, Abu Bakr Thabti. All of them were fathers, husbands, loved ones, colleagues, and they were Canadian Muslims who were killed in their mosque while worshipping. Their deaths were heartbreaking for their loved ones and for all Canadians and people around the world who witnessed this attack. Islamophobia and hatred in general and radicalization are a problem that we continue to witness around the world and are at the root cause of this horrifying crime. Since this atrocity, hate-motivated crimes have increased, not only against Canadian Muslims, but against many Canadians of different faiths and different groups, and they've increased in frequency and in their level of violence. We have an obligation to remember the victims and a responsibility to combat discrimination and continue to build a more inclusive country. Yesterday, the federal government announced that January 29th will be designated a National Day of Remembrance of the Quebec City Mosque attack and action against Islamophobia. We all have a responsibility to bring an end to hate. And here at Peel Police, with the leadership of our chief, we've taken unprecedented strides throughout the last several years to reaffirm our commitment to countering hate and discrimination. And so today, on this anniversary of this attack, we honor those who lost their lives, and we pray for their families who continue to suffer and struggle after losing their loved ones. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak to this as well, please. Thank you. Thank you. So on behalf of the people of Mississauga, I'd like to make a comment as well, just briefly. I have my green square on, although it looks yellow, but it's green. Today marks the 4-year anniversary of the tragic attack at the mosque in Quebec City. And I just want to say that myself and all Mississaugans are standing in solidarity with our Muslim community today, and that we condemn any act of violence, whether it's Islamophobia or any act of hatred or hate speech. And we have no tolerance for intolerance, and we will always support each other. So tonight we'll dim our clock tower to pay tribute to those 6 lives lost and the 19 others injured. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Crombie. Seeing no other speakers, we will now move on to the election of the chair for calendar year 2021. So pursuant to section 28, subsection 1 of the Police Services Act, the members of a board shall elect the chair at the board's first meeting in each year, and the executive director shall assume the chair and call for nominations for the position of the chair. I will now open the floor to any nominations.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to put forward the name of Ahmed Atia.
So Ahmed Atia has been moved by Mayor Crombie. Does anybody second that nomination?
Rob, I'll second it on behalf of Brampton.
Ahmed Atia has been nominated by Mayor Crombie and has been seconded by Councillor Martin Medeiros. Ahmed Atia has been nominated as a candidate for the position of chair. Are there any other nominations at this time?
Rob, Mr. Howell is raising his hand.
Oh, it's hard for me to see, sorry. Mr. Howell, go ahead.
I'd like to nominate Nando Iannica for chair.
Len Howell has nominated Nando Iannica for chair. Does anyone want to second that nomination?
I second that nomination.
Nando Iannica has been nominated by Len Howell, seconded by Al Boughton. Therefore, Nando Iannica is also nominated for the position of chair. Following our procedures policy, because there are two nominations, I will open the floor to both nominees to speak to the nomination. Based on our procedures policy, we will go in alphabetical order. Therefore, Mr. Atia, if you'd like to make some comments.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to thank my colleagues for having trust in me to leading the board forward as chair. And if the board does choose me to be fit for that position, I'll serve it with good judgment and responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atia. Mr. Iannica.
Thank you, Ron. Can you hear me? Very good. Listen, I think Ahmed said it, what an honor to be considered. If there's a role I can play, I would be honored in any way whatsoever that I can serve the board, and welcome whatever decision the board may make. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iannica. Do any other board members wish to make any comments? And again, my screen seems to be freezing, so if any other board members want to
Mr. Howell wants to say something, Rob.
Thank you. Mr. Howell?
Thank you. And thank you for the nominations, gentlemen. It should come as no surprise that I've again nominated Mr. Iannica, Chair Iannica. No disrespect to the other candidate, Ahmed Atia. I think there's no question that Nando Iannica has the most experience. He's been doing this job for the longest time, and he's certainly shown, from my opinion, the most experience, the longest time in this position, and he would no doubt have the best ability to do the job. I'm not saying that Mr. Atia doesn't have the qualifications, I just haven't seen them demonstrated from my position. And I think any otherwise, I think Mr. Iannica could judge that best himself, and if he could quickly just address his experience, and if Mr. Addy could do the same, if Member Addy could do the same, I think the qualifications would speak for themselves, and I'd be surprised if anybody's picked anybody other than Member Iannica, Chairman Iannica. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Any other comments at this time? Seeing none and hearing none. Again, my screen is a little frozen, so I don't hear anyone else wishing to speak at this point. We would be voting on the chair, and given that there are two nominations and 7 board members, it would seem that the current chair, Ron Chadha, would be the deciding vote, and therefore procedurally, I can ask Mr. Chadha who he will be voting for, which would essentially elect the chair. Mr. Chadha?
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everyone. It's a really tough spot to be in. And first of all, I want to thank everyone, entire CMG, my wonderful board members, for giving me the opportunity to serve as their chair in 2020, even though we don't want to remember 2020, but I want to thank each and everyone for working with me, and we all work together. At this point, I don't want to go into too much into details, but obviously Nando Unica is our regional chair, and when I joined on this board, I served as a vice chair under him, and what a great experience I had learning from the best, no doubt. And obviously last year when I was the chair, and Mr. Atia worked with me as his vice chair. So again, this is that tradition we are carrying on, and Mr. Atia represents the role of the vice chair really, really well, and therefore my support goes. I will be voting for Mr. Atia for the chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chatta. At this point, I can declare that Ahmed Atia be elected chair of the Regional Municipality Appeal Police Services Board for the year 2021. Mr. Atia shall assume the chair. Congratulations, Ahmed. I will turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Rob. And it is very humbling, and thank you to my colleagues for putting their trust in me to being the chair for 2021. I look forward to serving in that responsibility. But before moving on to the agenda, I'd like to thank Mr. Chatta. We had a very difficult year in 2020. Everyone did, and we continued to struggle with the pandemic. But throughout that year, even though it introduced challenges that we've never experienced before, Mr. Chatta led us as a board and as a service through those challenges, and without falling behind in the goals that we had. And I'd just like to recognize Mr. Chatta for his leadership in accomplishing a new strategic plan for the police service, an approval of a budget, and a very important and unprecedented MOU with the Ontario Human Rights Commission, committing us to eliminate systemic racism in policing and to promote transparency and accountability. And adoption of body-worn cameras, a major step forward in our use of technology, and continuing to offer the residents of Peel accountability, among many other important accomplishments. And so thank you for your service, Mr. Chatta. And in terms of the agenda, a few housekeeping items before we elect the vice chair. We are streaming the public portion of this meeting live on our YouTube channel. If you happen to have experience any technical difficulties with this live stream, please be advised that the meeting is being recorded and it will be posted on YouTube. To those who are in attendance, your microphone has been muted, and I ask that you put your hand up if you would like to speak. We will retain a list of speaking requests as we go on. Once you are called upon to speak, please unmute yourself and proceed. We ask that you please always keep your microphone muted unless you are speaking. As it relates to voting, please raise a hand to indicate your vote when a vote is called. And should you be disconnected from the video call, please rejoin using the link previously provided. And so now we will continue with the Peel Police Services Board meeting of January 29th, 2021. And our first agenda item is the election of the vice chair. Pursuant to Section 28(2) of the Police Services Act, members of a board may also elect a vice chair at the first meeting in each year, and the vice chair shall act as the chair if the chair is absent or if the chair's position is vacant. And so I now call on for nominations for the position of vice chair. Mr. Howell?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Nando Iannica, member Nando Iannica, for vice chair, and hopefully will be more of a straightforward vote without influence that I believe the last vote had.
Okay, so Mr. Nando Iannica has been nominated for the position of vice chair. Would anyone else like to second that?
I would second that.
Sorry, Mr. Atia, you're
Sorry.
mute. And
Yeah.
I guess Mr. Unica wants to say something before you go to the next person.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Go ahead, Nando.
Thank you. I'm very humbled by the nomination. First of all, Ahmed, congratulations. I think it's a fine choice, and I would have hoped that at the appropriate time we could have made it unanimous. And thank you for the vice chair. But I have a thought, if I may. I would like to. I'm happy to discuss. I'd like to humbly decline the vice chair because I believe where it might more appropriately belong is with our Martin Medeiros. And I would like to nominate him, and I will tell you why. As many of you know, so many of the challenges we have been so well articulated by Mayor Crombie and the great work she does on behalf of Mississauga, and the Brampton mayor who's no longer around the table. I already have a position of privilege around the table. To think that we could have representation with all of the challenges and the good work going on in Brampton, I would feel much better if we had a representative who could interface, because he understands regional government, he understands what's going on at Brampton Council, and I think Brampton needs that advocacy. And I know Martin would be ideal in that role. And I think it's a shout out to our friends in Brampton. And I think he could serve the role marvelously and bring so much more to the table, if I may say, when I already have the privilege of bringing it already to the degree that that's helpful or not. So if Martin would let his name stand, I would happily and humbly decline. And I think Martin would be outstanding as vice chair if he would be willing to accept for the reasons that I've given.
Martin, would you like to speak?
Yeah, no, I thank you very much. And thank you so much, Nando. And you know, not to keep passing on the hot potato. And I you know, have a lot of respect for, if anyone knows, I was the one who seconded Nando Unica to be the chair of Peel Region. I also supported him when he was the chair at CBC. So I have the utmost regard, and you know, I would be fortunate to even have half the career he's had. I really appreciate those sentiments. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to also pass the hot potato, and the reason being is that you know, this is my first day, and I humbly, I really appreciate that there's all these great experience around the table. You know, I was going to actually, when I put my finger, nominate Ron Chadha as the vice chair. And so I thank so much, you know, for the consideration, but I think I would like to learn this year, and then after, who knows, next year. But more importantly, you know, Ron brings the experience, and I think that really is a testament to this board by having individuals who really represent, you know, the people of Peel Region. So I'd like to nominate Ron Chadha. Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Mayor Crombie. So that nomination is seconded. Any further nominations? Shall we move to a vote? Okay, it seems that we have one nominee, so we do not need to vote. So that means that Mr. Ron Chadha will be elected as Vice Chair of the Regional Municipality of Peel Police Services Board for the year 2021. And, congratulations, Mr. Chadha. Okay, our next item.
Thank you, Chair Atia. I want to thank Regional Chair Nando Unica, Martin Medeiros, and Bonnie Crombie, and obviously my friend Len Howell and Al Barton showing the faith. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chadha. Our first item of the agenda for today is the approval of the minutes of the meeting held on Friday, November 27th, 2020. Can I have a mover? Mr. Chadha, and a seconder, Mr. Medeiros. All in favor? Okay, and that is carried. I believe we have an update from the chief. Chief, if you would like to take a moment to share your updates with the board and the members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Atia, and I just want to say a happy 2021 to the entire board on behalf of our team here at Peel Police, and congratulations, Chair Atia, and thank you to Chair Chadha for your role, and all the board members. I think, you know, just to reframe everything as the board, you know, considers moving through its procedures for the start of the new year. You know, we look back at 2020 and reflect on a pretty remarkable year. I just want to, you know, commend the board for their support and leadership of the organization. And as we start this new year, we as a team here have a sole goal, that's to make sure that Peel Police is and becomes the most progressive police organization, if not in Canada, internationally. So I want to say, as you know, proceed as a board, we appreciate your work and from a collaborative standpoint, and we are fully intent on maintaining that relationship as we move forward. So with that, Charity, I just wanted to acknowledge a poignant thing on behalf of the organization. Since our last board meeting on November 27th, we've had 2 of our serving members pass away off duty. And both of them the board would be aware of, but I want to publicly acknowledge the passing of Constable Bancroft Wright on December 11th while he was off duty, and also the passing of Detective Mike Nielsen on January 19th off duty. Both were part of the fabric of this organization, had a footprint in our community, in their own communities, had their families that were impacted, but we have the opportunity of being on Zoom with you, but these individuals, civilian and sworn, are really the ones that do the work day in and day out. And we often we've reflected on this quote from Roosevelt, often called the man in the arena quote, but the credit goes to the individuals that do the work on a day-to-day basis. And we just want to acknowledge their service. And we want to thank the board for their communication condolences. We continue to support their families in any way we can, and obviously that was mitigated during the pandemic. I also just wanted to give a couple of verbal updates. One is, as you know, the SIU continues to proceed through their lengthy investigations, and recently we saw the closing of the death of Jamal Francique, which was as a result of interaction with our service in the midst of an investigation, and we do want to acknowledge the loss of life, but also that it was found that our officers were acting in the lawful course of their duties while in the midst of a drug and firearms investigation, and in efforts to save and protect their lives that were in jeopardy. We tragically have lost a life. And that doesn't go without an acknowledgement publicly. As a chief, I've made a statement, but we do want to say that our members continue to do well and proceed as in their duties, honorably in their duties as they continue to move into the new year. And I just wanted to acknowledge the closing of that SIU file. I also wanted to say that as we begin the new year, a lot of the initiatives which the board has come alongside of us to approve are being announced. We're thankful to announce with Minister Jones and Minister Downey the announcement of a digital evidence management solution that we're integrating the work that the board approved with Axon and our body-worn cameras. I know Deputy O'Doherty is here and can speak to any updates should he wish on our initiative, but that continues to proceed, particularly at the airport division. And as well as we were grateful to receive a grant funding from the federal government on a human trafficking grant. These are significant activities because they align with our commitment to innovation and technology, to real public safety risks in the community, such as human trafficking, domestic and intimate partner violence. Secondly, I think the board would be just to update the board, because as you know, the board and the region have concluded and have a community safety well-being plan in hand. This continues to proceed with a lot of momentum. As of 2 weeks ago, the region of Peel has established its first situation table, which is a collaboration of multiple stakeholders within the community, inclusive of the police service, that are looking at acutely elevated risk situations. And we've talked about many tragic circumstances that we've seen in the last year or two, where individuals that have mental health crisis repeatedly are seen by police, fire, paramedics. The situation table represents a non-crisis opportunity to take some of these individuals, families, or communities off ramp and provide them the supports they need. And this is a direct outcome of the work we're doing from a community safety well-being standpoint. I also had the opportunity to present at the ROMA conference this week, which is the Rural Ontario Municipal Association, which is, as our elected officials know, is a significant opportunity to share what we're doing here at Peel Region, because the principles of community safety well-being, which we know them from Mississauga, Brampton, right into Caledon are transferable to a variety of municipalities across Ontario. Myself, in conjunction with Minister Dunlop, had the opportunity to showcase some of the work we're doing here. So I just wanted to give a small few verbal updates. I think we tend to lose some of them because of COVID and the pandemic. Any opportunity where I can use this opportunity to let the board know some of the activities that are occurring outside of the remarkable operational work that happens day in and day out by the women and men of our organization. Thank you, Chair Atia, for the opportunity to share that.
Chair Nick and Chair Nando, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, and wonderful for the chief to give me the segue of the question that I have on a couple of the files that he's just brought up. First of all, with great pride on behalf of Regional Council, the mayors, and all my colleagues, so proud that we have perfected our community safety and well-being plan, and it's such an irony. It meant so much to us and the work we did to get there that in and around the week we were announcing it, the provincial government was announcing, we know it's a lot of work, you other municipalities, you have until next year, but our team got the job done and we have our community safety and well-being plan. I know the chief was instrumental, Nancy Polsnelli at the region, all sorts of groups. And I've said before, that is our salvation. We need a model that gets us forward to address all the moving parts in society. Second point, I wanted the chief to speak to this. There was an editorial in the Star yesterday with regards to praising Toronto, if you will, for finally moving on health crisis calls, health crisis teams. And Bonnie will tell you, and I'll tell you, it's the bane of our existence that when you live next door to Toronto, the Toronto media doesn't know anything else exists. So it's remarkable how they will get a lot of credit for something Mayor Crombie and I and others may have done in Mississauga, Brampton, or Caledon 3 years, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, and all the work we've done on the vanguard of this. I just wanted to be noted. In fairness, a shout out to Jason Miller. He recently wrote a nice article about it and commended Mark Andrews for his fine work. But Chief, with all of that, if I could throw it to you and if you could tell the good people listening what we've been doing, what you've been doing in regard to this very important file and how far along we are.
Thank you, Chair Yanika. And yes, there was a great article that came out yesterday. Deputy Andrews featured in it, speaking to our response. But this is a great opportunity to affirm that, in the four walls of our region, we are equally, and if not, more creatively committed to advancing our efforts in the area of mental health programming. So, first things first is we all know that mental health is an issue that falls on the laps of policing and emergency services. And there are far more appropriate resources for that to be responded to. And here we are, just to reflect back on some of the activities very briefly, is that as a result of our commitment to mental health and addictions, our efforts as a police organization with the region appeal and the two cities, we've committed a strategy for mental health and addiction strategy comprised of internal and external stakeholders that have now formed an action table with the region. And out of that, we're seeing the successes. And the first thing is, very quickly, is the expansion of our mobile crisis rapid response team. We were thankful to get a grant funding from the province to expand up to 8. We are also awaiting funding imminently from health to embed crisis workers in our 911 communication center, which we know is an opportunity not done before. I know it's being piloted and considered, but we've gone one step further. We've partnered with, as of recently, with the Peel SHIP, and assigned 6 beds there specifically for Peel Regional Police, which is a crisis bed opportunity for us to actualize. We've also now embedded a mental health coordinator within the organization to work closely with the LINS, CMHA, and our crisis response teams and our COAST team. We've also, in the last 4 months, established our new divisional mobilization units, which is a reallocation of 48 officers that over December received mental health crisis training. They're going to be all embedded in all of our 5 divisions, and will have direct additional access to MCERT and COAST and intervention, prevention, and social development. I also mentioned to you the situation table has been stood up. And I think one of the unique programs the board would be interested in knowing is that we're looking one step further with our embedded crisis workers to see if we can actualize the technology that the board is authorized to use. You know, we've got body-worn cameras that have an ability to two-way stream. We do know that 8 MCERT teams aren't enough to cover the entire region. We still know that most officers are still doing on their own about 70% of the mental health calls without a crisis worker with them. But the ability to live stream from an officer's chest to a crisis worker in a 911 communication center to add value of, you know, connection to services, discernment is another thing that we're intending to leverage. We've also, in the early stages of looking at a community-led community medic model to look at responding to the lower tier elements of social health and disorders that aren't quite clinical. And we look forward to updating you on that. And finally, you know, the digital platform that we're pushing out to all our officers is going to look at using an application which will allow any officer to connect an individual directly to shelter, clothing, meals, mental health services, and employment in a real-time manner. And so under our broad strategy, it's sort of like a quiver with lots of arrows. I think you've heard me use this analogy before, is we just have completely turned the page on our offerings under the mental health banner. And I'm thankful to say that the team that is under Mark Andrews' command are really doing some remarkable things. And so although sometimes the spotlight hits the city of Toronto, we can assure you we are not intending to just catch up or be consistent. We intend on being leaders here in our community with, and the key is in collaboration with other people, because we recognize we're not doing this alone.
Chief, if I could just say thank you very much for that. And as I said, I think we have to keep telling these good stories and the steps that we're moving in the right direction. I know I sound a little bit harsh about the Toronto media, but to give you an example, and it comes back to the community safety and well-being, there's so many pillars that we need to put in place to help the drug addiction file, giving youth hope, et cetera. Housing is an example, and that's one of the illustrations I want to give. When all the talk is about housing, what are we doing for affordable housing, more housing, et cetera? I was dealing with all the mayors and chairs on a call, and I said, well, I'm proud of my council. We're building $1 billion of housing. And silence. They go, you hope to? I said, no, my council approved $1 billion of housing, gave us $333 million for the next 10 years. Minister Hussain came from the federal government, and at one of the groundbreakings was with I and Mayor Brown, and gave us their $256 million. And I said to the premier, said to him privately, and when you announce this election that's coming, I hope you're announcing it in Peel, and you're going to hand us a third of $1 billion check for your third. We are proposed to build 2,240 units of affordable housing, and we're in the process of building 340 already. The shovels are in the ground, but there's no headline that'll tell you that. But for our purposes, it lets the community know that the pillars that are important to us, like housing, we are dealing with. This all stems from the work we do at Community Safety and Wellbeing, the marvelous support of the regional councillors to put their money where their mouth is, and Chief, the good works that you'll be doing on the policing file to work with communities and advance policing as well. A lot going on here, and I'm very proud to make a note of it. And Chief, I'm glad you could speak to all the great work that you and the team are doing on this file. And I did see Deputy Andrews throughout the little snippets that were on the media, acquitted himself very well and made Peel Regional very proud. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chief, go ahead.
Chair, thank you, Chair Tia, thank you for the comments. I think it would be appropriate to not skim by this, that we know yesterday was Bell Let's Talk Day. And many of you have heard me say, and it's been requoted a few times, about we're not good on the inside, we're not good on the outside. And I just want to acknowledge that the organization has done a significant amount of work to make sure that we are creating an environment within Peel Regional Police that looks after the wellness and well-being of our members. And we're appreciative of the support and leverage that we're getting from both President Woolley and the PRPA, as well as some third-party entities like Beyond the Blue and Boots on the Ground. The work of our organizational wellness unit. We've released an internal video which has 3 of our members sharing their lived experiences that have been quite challenging in a very bold way, to encourage our members to be able to seek and actualize help, or even just to discuss it with each other. We've seen what's happened in other police organizations over the last couple of years with the loss of members due to mental health or suicide. We do recognize that first responders in a variety of different fields are in a really acute situation where the access to services or the feeling that they can access services aren't always as ones that they feel free about. So I just want to acknowledge, I thank you, the board, over time for continuing to support us on our internal work on mental health as well. I think it was an appropriate thing just to comment on the external and internal. So thank you, Chair Atia.
Do any other members have any questions or comments or announcements? Okay, then I think we'll move forward. The next item, we have a deputation in our agenda.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, actually I do as well. Sorry, I forgot.
Go ahead, Mayor.
To Chief, I raised this yesterday at budget, but certainly the City of Toronto is offering the 211 line, and I think that's something that's time for us to look at here as well. And they have found some additional funding for their own mobile crisis units, and so that's something we should, think about as well. If the money can't come from the province, where else can it come from? Obviously, it should come from the province, but maybe it's time that we look to the region and see if we can't get more funding for mobile crisis units.
Thank you, Your Worship. And yes, absolutely. I think it's an opportunity, and I'll talk to the team. And we've got the natural vehicle through our the region's mental health action table, which I can speak to Commissioner Polsinelli, and we can look at what could be done at a regional or municipal level too. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, so today we have a deputation from Mr. Javinder Sodhi on behalf of the Homeowners Association. He's joined us. I see he's joined us via Zoom. Mr. Sodhi, welcome to the board meeting. A reminder that you're allocated 5 minutes for your deputation. If you're ready, you can please begin. Mr. Sodhi, can you hear us?
Chair, I think his audio is getting connected, so.
Just give him. Seems like he's connected now. Mr. Sodhi, can you hear us? Okay, Mr. Sodhi, can you unmute yourself? Mr. Sodhi, you're muted. If you can unmute, please.
Yes, please. Good morning.
Perfect. Welcome. If you're prepared, you can begin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the chair and the members of the Peel Police Board. We have been delegating since several years to the City of Brampton, Region of Peel, and the Police Board. And we have done some delegations, some of the town halls we have attended by hundreds of people. And finally, we reached a point when the City of Brampton and the Region of Peel unanimously accepted our delegation to provide the community police station in Brampton East in Ward 7, 8, and 9 area to cover, which is 1/3 of the total population of Brampton. So I'm going to be starting my delegation with, finally, after several years of continuous delegation and so on, Homeowners Welfare Association and Concerned Resident of Brampton delegation for Police Board to accept our request of the police station and increase the police presence in the area, right? So our asks are very simple. Increased police presence to control the criminal activities police station in Brampton East and West also, I think they are covering, but today we are talking about the East for now. Reform new policies to ensure public road safety. We have delegated several times, not only once, twice, thrice, every time we raise a flag, we continually contributing taxes, 4 million on Mayfield and Gore, Mayfield and Clarkway. There is no left or right merging lanes. And Highway 50 is one of the worst roads in the Ontario where we have everyday accidents happening. It's because of the poor planning, because of the public safety is at jeopardy. On Countryside and Torbram, there was an accident where 3 angels lost their life, which is tragedy for all of us. I think never forgettable to any one of us. And you see on the same area, there is a gas station on the corridor where the accident happened. And the building is right on the edge of the road. It's blocking the view of the passengers. These are the normal examples. And the sport initiatives of Safe Brampton, we would like to have more participation in police board, so that way the real public concern comes to the board. I'm not sure how your board works. There is no, I never have seen an invite or a request for some of the initiatives or some of the suggestions or some of the improvement initiatives. Never hear that from our homeowners welfare association or concerned residents of Brampton. Never hear that part. Due to the recent increase in crime in Peel region, is in desperate need of a police station due to the on like a west side is around 27 kilometers. On east side is 22 kilometers from the current police station, which is in the Bramley city center area, to the Mayfield and Highway 50 area. So total population, as I mentioned earlier, around 200,000, and crime has increased 50% person to person, and 34% leading in existing experience in XT and other fear due to increased crime, lack of police station, extremely delayed response time. I don't feel safe when I'm at work. My daughter or my mother at home alone, because anybody can break your door and come in and take away. And we have shared the videos in the past, where 300 shares in 24 hours from my local page. It's not a very popular page. It's just a few friends. 315 shares in 24 hours of a video, and the car has been stolen right at the gunpoint. And gunpoint people are entering your homes. I personally don't feel that in Peel, Brampton, we don't feel safe as of today's conditions. We support the police presence. We always encourage that more police, more safety, but same time, engagement of youth for rash driving, or I would say stunt driving. We need to have more blitz to control those criminal activities in Brampton, in Peel, in Mississauga, in Caledon, because I sit on a board of BIA, Bolton Business Improvement Association as well. So we have raised the flags over there. We are working with the Caledon town. Point is, somewhere is a gap between the communities and the police. That has to be bridged up. And that's pretty much I have to say. We have been speaking every year, every other month, and we are sharing all the information. Time for an action. I think it's already a late action if we provide the police station today, but still we are looking forward positively. And fortunately, our chair of the board lives in the same area from where I'm raising a voice. He lives just across the street from me. Our voice has not been heard as of today. We're looking forward that someone take an action, appropriate action, to resolve public concern. Road safety, last point is,
Maybe I close this phone now.
Thank you,
the last
Mr.
point I have to say is that's the last thing I would like to hear, somebody go from home and don't come back due to the lack of road safety conditions. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sodi, and thank you for joining us today. Are there any questions or comments regarding this deputation? Please, Mr. Chatter.
Yeah. Chair, through this board and through you, I want to thank Mr. Sodi for coming forward, and he's truly a champion, and continuously, whether that's the city of Brampton or region of Peel, he's always there for creating the awareness and bringing much the issues which are concerned the most, especially in this East End, especially the roads he mentioned, whether that's the countryside. We are all witnessed the horrific incident we have last year, and multiple incidents we witnessed on Highway 50. So just Mr. Sodi, just so you know, myself last year and both the Councillor Dillon and Councillor Singh for Ward 9 and 10 in Brampton, I was involved in one of the town hall virtual meeting with our superintendent Navy changer from 21 Division. And I'll be certainly on my personal level, since I live in this area, I will be following up with the actions of whether that's the 21 Division or with our councillor. But thank you for coming forward and bringing, as always, you're doing a wonderful job, and it's always good to see you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your efforts, and we always talk offline, and your support is great. And I hope this time we will be getting a police station, a community police station in Brampton, east side of it.
Councillor Medeiros, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much through you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Sodi, and I appreciate you and your organization's advocacy. You know, one of the comments that you did say that in terms of you know, some of these issues not being brought forward, and your organization has been referring to it. I can assure you that as Vice Chair Chadha has expressed, Councillor Dillon, Councillor Singh, I know Mayor Brown, you know, they've really sort of brought these issues and really addressed these issues through your advocacy, certainly. But this has been, you know, on Council's agenda, and I know this has been always a conversation at Peel Region, and especially on the Police Services Board. You know, the debate around having a community presence or having an official station. I don't know if someone, if the chief or anyone can respond to, you know, it's that big debate. Do we want to put resources or, you know, have a, you know, a physical location, or are those resources better deployed to increase, you know, police presence or any of those stuff? And, you know, in terms of what they talk about the distance, because I don't know Brampton East as much, but I often hear from the community that, you know, as we see downtown Brampton, which we just had our downtown sort of little the station there. Can you speak to that sort of debate in terms of policing by actually having a physical sort of office, or what does that do in terms as a deterrent, and does that sort of help with policing operations?
Thank you very much. Welcome on the board as well. We are very happy to have a police station in downtown Brampton, but similarly, if it's a response time, we have seen incidents happen, and police response time has been drastically increased due to traffic or whichever way we call it, and community station will not cost a lot of money as well, because the resources will be used. Like you could Gore Meadows Library, we have tons of space for there.
I think we've lost Mr. Sodi. Chief, would you or any of your deputies like to comment on Councillor Medeiros' question?
Absolutely, thank you, Chair. I first want to acknowledge the fact that you know, really the spirit of what we're hearing is, you know, despite the fact that we know statistically, crime stat-wise, we are a significant reduction in crime across the region year over year. We've seen a reduction last year statistically too. So I just need to clarify, the data is not really what we're pivoting on. It's, you know, people's perception is their reality, and what we're hearing is, you know, a desire for an increased presence from police. And really what that means is how effective are we being in our community. And I can assure you the comments and delegation from Mr. Sodi are duly noted, and we continue to have Superintendent Chinzer navigate some of the issues in the Northeast. And the road safety element, absolutely, you know, we know that it's a priority. as it pertains to road engineering. As you know, we don't have the ability to navigate that completely, but people's feeling of being safe is really what we're talking about here, and we're equally committed to that. But I do need to acknowledge that that's not exclusively a bricks and mortar response. We are not a fire department or a paramedic station where a call comes in and we respond from a division. Our officers start their day and are deployed at certain locations. So the ability to police a growing population is a real issue. We do have a long-term facilities plan, and the board, as you recall, also commissioned me to do a service delivery review, which we had PricewaterhouseCoopers also come. And as you know, the board will know, we do have plans to build a North End division. This is an ongoing activity is occurring with the regional realty. As Chair Yanika would know well, we continue to look for that, as well as dealing with a growing police service. That being said, the efficacy of community stations, we've known, it's been clearly pointed out that they do have a feeling of presence for people, but the return on investment from a substation isn't really seen necessarily from ability to respond into the community. Right, we don't respond from them, and I can say that the downtown substation in Brampton has had an impact of a feeling of a presence there. But I can say, Mark, I think less than 5 police reports have happened at the downtown station since its opening. It really doesn't come from the bricks and mortar. It comes from the officers doing footbeat, the officers engaging the community, being able to respond timely to calls for service. We know those are all priorities for us. Being able to unravel crimes against persons or property are all our foremost agenda. So, we appreciate the delegation, and we continue to look forward to opportunities to really advance these issues collaboratively with our community. Thank you.
Yeah, and through the chair, I think one thing that you've really touched upon is sort of what is truth and what is perception. And I think the problem right now, the perception is, from sometimes folks like myself in our business, is we want to give that sort of value proposition to the residents for them to feel safe. So advocate for some form of police presence by saying that, look, we got an office here, so there should be that perception of a sense of safety, but that doesn't sort of correspond to reality. And how we get that message out, because I could tell you that at council tables across Peel Region, I know just in Brampton, everyone's looking for their own in their community because everyone's pointing to the downtown one now. So that seems to be the discussion. But thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Chief. If there are no further comments, I'd like to call to move to receive the deputation. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Medeiros and seconded by Mr. Chadha. This has been carried. Thank you, Mr. Sodi, for your participation today. I can assure you your comments and your feedback and those of all deputations in the past are accounted for, and specifically around divisions and response time, etc. These have been accounted for in the service delivery review that the chief and his management group are working on. So thank you for your time today.
Please, I have to say final comment, please, for 30 seconds. Are we planning to close all the community stations as per the chief of the police said? There is no value to it, especially the Brampton downtown. If we are not, we're looking forward. We contribute maximum tax revenue to the city and region. We deserve a safe place to live for ourselves and for our families. That's my final request is either you close other ones if they don't contribute the value, or you give a fair representation to everyone. I'm not pleased with the chief's comments at this point. Please look at public safety. You save one human life, that is very important. I think that has not been completely ignored in this comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sodi, for your final remarks. Thank you. We will move to our next agenda item. Body-worn camera draft policy has been shared It's been shared with everyone. The governance committee has been working with the chief and his team to develop this policy. And before we take it to be approved, are there any comments or questions from the board? Chief, would anyone on your team like to speak to the policy, or should we move to a motion?
Mr. Chair?
Please, Mayor, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. It's not that I don't want to ask questions. Just wanted to say that we had the opportunity in governance committee to vet the policy, and I think it's very thorough and very complete. And all the questions I had have been answered and are well defined with respect to how long the data is kept, where it'll be kept, when can it be used, in what circumstances could officers turn the cameras off. All those questions, we vetted in the governance meeting, so not for the benefit of whoever is following along with us today, to think that we're rubber stamping anything. We have been thoroughly through this, and I think it's very well done. So unless there's any other of the board members who weren't at the governance meeting who may have questions, but thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know unless Anthony has something to top up.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Chair. No, nothing further to top up. I believe this was an extensive collaborative process, and I think it speaks for itself.
Thank you. And I'll just add to Mayor Crombie, as a governance committee, we listened to a lot of the feedback that was shared through deputations and also directly from the community and individuals in the community who had concern about certain issues, as well as certain experts on the topic. And we took lessons from other police services who are either implemented or in the process of implementing. We asked the key questions about accountability, about the intent of the use, and other matters, and we discussed these thoroughly with the chief and his team. And I also want to say that I think the policy is comprehensive and will lead forward with a strong implementation of body-worn cameras. And so without any further ado, can I have a mover to approve the draft policy? Moved by Mayor Crombie, a seconder, Mr. Howell. And so this is carried forward. Concluding the meeting, we've covered the agenda. This concludes the public portion of the Peel Police Service Board meeting. We will adjourn for 5 minutes and then move into our in-camera through Zoom conferencing. So thank you everyone for joining today.